The principle of essence, we have seen, is identity. The being of each essence is entirely exhausted by its definition. I do not mean its definition in words, but the character which distinguishes it from any other essence. Every essence is perfectly individual. There can be no question in the realm of essence of mistaken identity, vagueness, shiftiness, or self-contradiction. These doubts arise in respect to natural existences, or the meanings or purposes of living minds. But in every doubt or equivocation, both alternatives are genuine essences. And in groping and making up my mind, I merely hesitate between essences, not knowing on which to arrest my attention. There is no possibility of flux or ambiguity within any of the alternatives which might be chosen at each step. This inalienable individuality of each essence renders it a universal. For being perfectly self-contained and real only by virtue of its intrinsic character, it contains no reference to any setting in space or time, and stands in no adventitious relations to anything. Therefore, without forfeiting its absolute identity, it may be repeated or reviewed any number of times. Such embodiments or views of it, like the copies of a book or the acts of reading it, will be facts or events in nature, which is a net of external relations. But the copies would not be copies of the same book, nor the readings of it, unless and insofar as the same essence repeated in them all. Physical obstacles to exact repetitions or reproductions do not affect the essential universality of every essence, even if by chance it occurs only once or never occurs at all, because in virtue of its perfect identity and individuality, it cannot fall out of the catalogue of essences, where it fills its particular place. If I try to delete it, I reinstate it, since in deleting that, I have recognized and defined it anew, bearing witness to its possessing the whole being which it can claim as an essence. There accordingly it stands, waiting to be embodied or noticed, if nature or attention ever choose to halt at that point or to reverse it. Every essence in its own realm is just as central, just as normal, and just as complete as any other. It is therefore always just as open to exemplification or to thought, without the addition or subtraction of one iota of its being. Time and space may claim and repeat it as often as or as seldom as they will. That is their own affair. The flux is free to have such plasticity as it has, and to miss all that it misses. And it is free to be as monotonous as it likes, if it finds it easier to fall again and again into the same form, rather than to run away into perpetual and unreturning novelties. The realm of essence is a scale of measurement, the continuum of variation on which these repetitions or these novelties may be plotted and compared. Re-embodiments or re-surveys of an essence, if they occur, bind the parts of the flux together ideally and render it amenable to description. The essential universality of these forms makes any fact, insofar as it exhibits them, distinct and knowable. The universe and the individual being so far from contrary conceiving and defining such an object, we prove it to possess the only being which we mean to ascribe to it. Denying it to be infinite, or denying that any supposed element in it existed, we should be designating these missing elements and that absent infinity, whereby we should be instituting them ideally and recognizing them to be essences. The realm of essence is comparable to an infinite Quran, or the Logos that was in the beginning, written in invisible but indelible ink, prophesying all that being could be or contain, and the flux of existence is the magical reagent, traveling over it in a thin stream, like a reader's eye, and bringing here one snatch of it and there another, to the light for a passing moment. Each reader may be satisfied with his own verse and think it the whole of Scripture, but the mere assertion of this limit, or suspicion that other readers might find other texts, is enough to show that the non-existent cannot be limited, since the limits of the existent might always be changed. To deny the being of essence because it may happen to be unrealized is self-contradictory, for if it is not realized, it must have a quality, distinguishing it from realized forms. Unrealized forms may not interest a sluggish mind. An arithmetician who was happy in the thought of whole numbers might depreciate all mention of vulgar fractions or repeating decimals, and might swear to die without them, lest his safe and honest arithmetic should be complicated with unrealities. But unrealities of that sort nevertheless envelop his realities on every side, and it is his arrest at his realities that, if you like, is unreal. There is no reason in it, and no permanence, whereas the unrealities are unchangeable, inevitable, and always standing behind the door. Even if the whole realm of essence, as Spinoza assumed, were realized somewhere at some time in the life of nature, essence would remain a different and non-existent realm, because the realization of each part could be only local and temporary, and for all the rest of time and in all the worlds that exclude it, each fact would fade into the corresponding essence, and would remain certain and inevitable as an essence only, and as a fact merely presumptive. Essence, so understood, much more truly is than any substance or any experience or any event. For a substance, event, or experience may change its form or may exist only by changing it, so that all sorts of things that are proper to it in one phase will be absent from it in another. It will not be a unit at all save by external delimitation. Perhaps some abstract constancy in quality, energy, or continuity may be discovered to run through it, but this constant element will never be the actual experience, event, or substance in its living totality at any moment, where perhaps all the phases of such an existence might be viewed together and synthesized into one historical picture, but this picture would again not be the existent substance, experience, or event unrolling itself in act. It would be only a description of that portion of the flux seen under the form of eternity. In other words, it would be an essence and not an existence. Essence is just that character which any existence wears in so far as it remains identical with itself, and so long as it does so. The very character which it throws overboard by changing and loses altogether when it becomes something else. To be able to become something else, to suffer change and yet endure, is the privilege of existence, be it in substance, an event, or an experience, whereas essences can be exchanged, but not changed. Existence at every step casts off some essence and picks up another. We call it the same existence when we are able to trace its continuity and change by virtue of its locus and proportions, but often we are constrained to give up the count and to speak of a new event, a new thing, or a new experience. The essences or forms traversed in mutation render this mutation possible and describable. Without their eternal distinctness, no part of the flux could differ in any respect from any other part, and the whole would collapse into a lump without order or quality. So much more profound is the eternal being or the essences traversed and changed than that of the matter or attention or discourse which plays with those essences at touch and go.